Hello, folks. So, in this video, I wanted to talk about some of the interview questions that I got in two companies that I attended interviews for recently. So, one is called Capillary Technologies. So, this is them. So, it's a product company. It's in India, and I interviewed for a position in Bangalore. So, because I live in Bangalore, so she actually looked at their careers. They're actually present in many other places also. So if you look at location is Bangalore, and let me put. Think this should be actually. I think it should be Asia Pacific, but I can actually put it as technology. Okay. Tech product. CRM Asia. Not sure if it is over here, but I'm actually applying for a lead role and for kind of like for site reliability engineering, right? So let me actually look for leads. So team lead. Let me look at all locations. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm guessing this might be it. I don't know. Uh, So, anyways, I'll tell you about the different what do you say questions I got, right? So I attended a lot of like rounds. So let me talk about the different rounds and with whom I did it. So let's go ahead and look at. So let me just say capillary technologies interview, right? This was on June 5th and June 4th. So June 4th, 2025 and June 5th, right? So I had four rounds and first round, let's talk about it. And before, second round, third round, fourth round. So fourth round, I spoke with someone named Palla, and I also spoke to someone named Nayan. Third round was with this person named Deepak, and this was Srijit. So let me actually find out. This was nine. So this is Nayan Kumar, right? Right. And this one I forgot the name, full name. And this was the actually the recruiter. So Lamha, right? So recruiter was Lamha Chauhan and Neha Lakhwani. And someone before spoke to me later also. Someone named as Mukta, I think, Mukta. And in between, I also spoke to someone named Anita. I think their name is Anita Mariam Jacob, right? So that's them. This is one of the HRs that I spoke to on June 4th when Neha wasn't available. And the other people are Mukta, I think, Mukta. Um, Let me find out one moment. Mukta, I think, okay, that is her, I think. Mukta Narigal. I think she is probably the one who called me initially. The capillary, yeah, I think that's her. So it's basically Mukta Narigal. Sorry, Narigal Lakhani and Anita Mariam Jacob. Right. So it's Neha Lakhwani. So that's her. So and Anita Mariam. We already saw. And Lamha Chauhan is this person. So these were the people that I was talking to and getting emails from. Just a moment. So they are asking me for an opportunity in Java. I just need to say hi, thanks for reaching out. Um, I'm not have not professionally worked on Java only for 1 year. Um, okay, cool. So just a moment. Okay, so yeah, let me actually show you the people I spoke to. So basically, I spoke to Deepak Kumar, and I spoke to Pallav Kumar. So this was DIPAK Deepak Kumar and Pallav Kumar. So and yeah, I think uh, Dave yesterday I spoke to Sunil Kumar. I didn't talk to Shivam Kumar, but yeah, I spoke to Sunil. So it was supposed to be with Sunil and Shivam. Sunil Kumar and Shivam Kumar. Shivam Kumar. So this person did attend. Um, so even I think Nayan was supposed to come up yesterday, but he didn't. But today he spoke to me. Fifth round, just me asking questions. Uh, so, sure. And so this was with Srijit S, right? So the first round was actually a coding round, not exactly coding, but to some extent coding and Viva or oral questioning, right? Um, with some whiteboarding. Um, right? Um, the second round was a lot of talking, oral questioning, and a lot of whiteboarding, right? Third round was also talking, oral questioning, a lot of whiteboarding. Fourth round was also actually a lot of talking. So, first round, Sunil was asking me about stuff around Terraform. He asked me questions around Java, REST API development, using Spring Boot. So some questions in that, like very just one or two questions in each of these. So in this, he asked about transactional annotation. Uh, along with a method, along with a defined method for a service. I think it was for a service. I think, and he asked me if it is correct code or not. And it was actually an incorrect code, but I said it looks fine to me. But it was actually an incorrect code because the code said something like I think transactional, and I think it was a service. Um, so it was something like I think. Okay, let me recall. I can't recall if it. I think it was a void, and I think it was like some service, right? Um, and it had some input and all. So here, what it did was it had some repository, user repository, um, and it was getting something right from the user repository, and it was getting the user and something like user profile. I think it was a user profile. So user profile dot update something, right? And then user repository dot save something, right? Dot save or something like that, right? Or I think it was user profile dot save. I can't recall exactly which one. Um, so I think this was some sort of like update profile, some service. I think with some user ID as input. I think user ID something, right? So I don't remember the exact details, but so update some field, um, save it in the DB, right? All using ORM. So Java, this was Java, right? And finally, it said something around audit service dot update something, right? And there was one more thing, I think, something audit service something. So basically, he was asking me, is this correct? And I was telling that, well, transactional is only for changing multiple tables in a database and running multiple SQL query statements and whatnot. And if this fails, well, this will be reverted back very easily. This is just one. This is one get and one save, and all related to one DB. But the thing that he told me was that we are actually keeping track of this update or whatever happened in an audit service or history service something, um, right? And update like basically save it in DB, right? So the thing is, basically, he said that if this fails, let's say something fails, ideally it should also revert this, right? If something fails here, it should revert this, but this is wrong, is what he said. Basically, this should not be part of this because if this fails, um, this is not being rolled back. I think this rollback is straightforward. I don't know, something like that. So basically, this was wrong. This is what he asked in Spring Boot in this, and he was asking me even stuff around like how to what does it mean to actually have a post and then say void create user or something, and say this is user and what is get user um, int user ID, say something like this. So I explained what it is, that post is usually used to create. So he just had some comments here saying implementation here. So I just get is used to get users, post is usually used for creating a thing and all that. And that's it. He asked around this. For Terraform, he asked me um, to explain a plan, Terraform plan. Terraform plan, Terraform apply, Terraform refresh, what is refresh, and then Terraform destroy, right? And then he asked me questions around concurrently, concurrent Terraform apply, what happens, right? So I spoke about how plan is just to show you a plan of execution, right? And applies to actually apply after doing plan. So plan output can be stored or not. Apply can take plans output as input, right? And state refresh. I didn't get around to talking about this, but I know that it's a state refresh where the state file is refreshed using the actual resources status, and destroy is to delete resources, right? I think all resources given the Terraform source file. So, and then what happens when one does this, when it happens, uh, and will there be a problem? So I struggled in this a bit because I was talking about remote state, remote backend for state file like S3, and know what happens, and about locking state file or state locking, right? These are some things that I spoke about, but I wasn't sure. Like he said, like what exactly happens. I think I know that it will give out an error, assuming you run your plan and give the plan output uh, to the apply, and if the state is different, like what happens when it's concurrently done. But I think someone would have applied this one of the I mean someone would have, like, if there are two people, one of them would have applied first and that would have changed the state, and when the second person tries to apply, it'll say the plan output is old, something like that. Though I need to actually try this out. It's been long since I tried this. And what happens when both of them do apply without giving the plan output to it? I think it just probably stores the, I mean, probably locks the state file while doing the apply. But other than that, I think if both are doing concurrently apply, one will be able to log the resource, log the state file. I think the other will not be. And yeah, I mean, one by one it will happen, and the last apply is what stays, is what I believe. Assuming the resources are like same resources that are being actually worked on in terms of like the Terraform files, right? So Terraform source files, uh, same resource being modified in the concurrent applies is the question. So I don't know concurrent applies. Terraform applies. Does Terraform do uh, does it do, like, does it, that is Terraform, do full locking of the state file or parts of it, right? Say some resources are locked for concurrent access, right? Because we'll have readers writers problem. I did mention this. So yep, but I didn't know more than this because I wasn't sure. So that was bad. But yeah, this was one question. Another question was around monitoring a service and automatically restarting it when it's down. So that is that. So in this question, basically, what was the expectation was you don't have to have some ping service, right? Monitoring your service is what I said. But what I was asked was, assume VM is restarted manually. What to do to ensure the service starts? So I said use init script, kind of like this is similar to there's this thing called cloud init, which is a standard now. Um, so this is there in Ubuntu especially, and there is also this concept of system daemon, system D. So use systemctl and use systemd service or unit, define and use is what I said, which has information around how to start a service, its description, etc. Use systemctl enable service and start service, right? So I think this should just do it. Um, that's all I told them. And they said it has to send a Slack message or something, some notification. So I told them that instead of writing a, will you write a bash script or what, and how it looks like. Um, so I said for complex stuff, use Golang or similar to create a CLI tool and use it in the bash script. So I said something like use curl for plain stuff and parse response by getting response using -i option or flag of or switch of curl, right? Or just use a proper modern programming language with enough features, including modern features like error handling, great error handling, like Golang, and handle different kinds of errors. Use Slack API key or use Alert Manager, which is actually a Prometheus based project from Prometheus project. And I said something like, and use Alert Manager to route the notifications to Slack, email, or different channels, different medium or channels like pager duty and all that, right? And so basically, they said restarting it automatically, right? They wanted to restart it automatically, restarting it automatically when it's down, right? Ping service, they said, yeah, I mean, this is what I said. Um, so, yeah. So, I said use init script, right? Init script standard. Okay. So this is what I spoke about in terms of like the monitoring of the service, Terraform, concurrent Terraform apply and all, and then Java stuff. Finally, I was asked about Terraform code. So this was a HashiCorp configuration language. So um, I think if I say Terraform, no. HashiCorp configuration language, this basically came up. So something like AWS EC2 instance, I think, and it said web, and it had some fields, and then there was one more called AWS EC2. I think EC2 or something like it basically said security group rule, right? And type is ingress and whatnot, and source something, right? So I can basically show you which of these fields are basically registry uh, dot terraform.io, and let's look at manage preferences, save preferences. Let's look at AWS. I think not AWS Bedrock. That's just code for AI ops. Interesting. So let me actually show you. Oh yeah, AWS. So here, let's look at the documentation. So here, let's look at security group, right? In EC2, so we are looking at security hub, data sources, security lake. Uh, yeah, I think this is what came up, right? So this was an old thing, but anyways, represents single ingress or egress. And how do you associate a security group to a security group rule? Well, I don't know. I think there is something related to that also, like something similar to association. Something they had, I guess. So you should use AWS resource in conjunction with security egress group rule resources or with an AWS security group that has inline rules. Okay. This one says use to avoid this use a current best practice of AWS VPC security group egress rule ingress rule. Okay, so these are some old stuff, right? But he was showing this to me and he was asking what is the correct thing. So he had from port to port protocol. Um, I think it had 80. I can't recall. Two port. was 80, and protocol, and then there was argument reference optional. So I think it had source security group ID and then just security group ID also. Yes. So basically to say security group ID to allow access to or from depending on the type. So if it is from, then I think you know it's a ingress. If it's an ingress, then two, right? See here. So for example, one moment. They don't show source security group at all over here, I think. Anyways, for is it self? I don't know. This is egress, so it has to be two basically. This is egress again two. Uh, this is ingress. Basically tells I think from what is the source. So because in ingress I think this is the destination. In egress, this is the source. So I think the source security group would be destination. So yeah, just a moment. Hello, folks. I'm back. So, yeah. So the question I was asked was, is it working? Is it a proper thing or not? So here the parameters were here the parameters were one moment instance. Here, I think the parameters were, I think it was AWS instance or EC2 instance. I think it was just AWS instance. I think the parameters were these instance type and all that. And there are some required arguments. I think they asked me if it is correct and if it will work in production and all that. So every time they ask some question, they usually ask if it will work in production, right? If you can you deploy this in production and whatnot, basically. I'm guessing there are some required fields. Let me check. I was telling them how VPC ID is a required field. Argument, attribute, reference, this exports. Let me check. Required unless instance type. So device name is required. Usually VPC is also required from what I remember. VPC ID. Let me see if that is there. First of all, VPC uh, ID. So okay, that is part of the subnet. So most recent instance. Okay, so you just say AWS subnet, I think, and the subnet belongs to the VPC. I said a VPC ID something might be required, and what else? Uh, so like subnets belong to VPC and all that. So VPC has subnets, and then within the subnet, the instance is there. So this was a question that was also asked by Srijit in the second round. Um, Explain the cloud architecture. So he was asking about this, and so there were some things here. So I was just asked, was it correct or not? And tags were like name and all that. So it's like, yeah, it will work and all that. So I said later, I said you might need the security group thing, something around security group, and then VPC ID, right? This is what I said. So second round was by Srijit. So a lot of questions around previous company, uh, where I'm from and whatnot. Um, what else? Interests. So I said my interest is around infrastructure and databases. So he asked where this interest roots from. Uh, Roots of interest. I said first job, right? Working on infrastructure and and databases. So we spoke a bit about my career. I was telling how I feel it's a failure, or at least of sorts. And I told I got fired at my one company called Togai, um, because I was slow. So yeah, and then why? Like basically, he was asking me why did I move jobs? Why change jobs in each job, right? So I told like my second job was very comfortable. First job, I forgot to tell. I think it was hard. Um, Second job, comfortable, too comfortable, right? Got scared. So yeah. Um, so first job basically it was getting hard, and having a lot of health problems and all. So, but second job, though I got too comfortable, I did you know work on my health. So yeah. Third job, since it was second job was too comfortable. Third job, I went to a startup and startup and fired at the end. Fourth job, left unhappily. So he kind of was asking me, was the whole thing around satisfaction, job change, uh, right? So that was that, and I told him how in my last job, I told them that I'm incompetent and whatnot, and how my lead left and whatnot. And he was also being supportive. So Srijit was saying that like how I probably didn't have enough experience to just lead, at least not as much as like my previous lead who had 6 years of experience, and I had just joined like a year ago. Anyways, later he said, design an architecture. He asked me to design it in such a way that it is cost optimized. Um, it can be easily managed by 10 developers. Um, like it can be easily managed by I think few developers, and I think he said few developers or 10 developers something, and he wants the teams to be able to deploy to it and whatnot, right? Uh, he mentioned more stuff. For example, I think he mentioned we can use AWS, and he was talking about how multiple locations, right? So I told him my answer was this: use CDN, like AWS CloudFront, for UI, for API, you know, deploy on VMs, or else, if Kubernetes knowledge is not a problem, um, then go for it. So he actually added 10 microservices, I think. So 10 microservices, something. And yeah, I think few developers. So, yep. And easy to maintain, right? Easy to maintain are some of the things that he said. He said more, I forgot. It has to be secure, of course, right? And basically, these things he wanted me to keep it in mind. So he was asking. We spoke about how ECS, Elastic Container Service, versus Kubernetes. Why or why not Kubernetes? For example, I was telling it's a big hammer for just 10 microservices, though you could do it. And then Nomad as one alternative for Kubernetes, right? Um, so these were some of the things we were talking about, and then I said self-hosted solutions versus SaaS solutions. For database specifically, I was talking about it, but I think I was trying to do this for others also, other stuff like CI/CD and whatnot. So for database, I said open source database versus closed source, um, and open source plus self-hosted plus SaaS can later move to open source plus self-hosted, or in paid also you can actually have SaaS or license plus self-host, right? Or license plus self-host, right? Using particular paid license, right? Like enterprise license, etc. Right. So I was talking about these and about how API compatibility uh, with the client software when it comes to database. So these are some things we spoke about, and I told Syrian because different locations and all. So he wanted locations like US, and he said in the future it can be in UAE and whatnot, and APAC, different places, right? So I can't recall if he said Europe, but yeah. So we spoke about all of this, and finally, and he was asking me about cloud networking. How does it look like? So here we spoke about VPC, subnet, right? And he was asking about how internet access will work, security, like network security and all. So I spoke to him about how database can be connected only through the microservices, right? And only a particular microservice can probably connect to one database because it owns it. The others can't. So extra security, and also to ensure that if anything gets compromised, the others don't get compromised. So something like that. So if microservice user service uh, and user service can access the user service database, and others can also, if user service gets compromised, then like uh, like it can access the other databases also. So yeah, I mean, I said let's just go ahead with like providing access to only particular microservices and all that. So this was one of the questions, and then he was asking me how what will be the IP that the outside services can see when the pods, let's say from Kubernetes, access the what do you say, the external services. How can they access and whatnot? We also spoke about air gapped and all that in between. I think environment and all that. I think we spoke about this. I spoke about this surely in the third round. I remember that for CI/CD. So here we were talking about NAT, network address translation, and then we spoke about internet gateway. So I was drawing parallels from the local, like how Wi-Fi routers and all work, and he was telling me don't talk about local. Let's talk only about AWS and the cloud. And so yeah, I was having some questions or doubts here about what I was saying. Like, is it correct or is it a bit wrong or whatever? So he was asking me how this how this whole thing happens, the connectivity happens, how does it know where to go and all that. Then I was talking about routing table, right? IP routing table and all that. So yeah, and so as giving example for external service, uh, um, as Google, and so he was asking what is the IP that Google will see and all that. So that is that. So we spoke about all this, and finally he was asking me if I have any questions for him, and that's it. So, and that was the first day. And the second day, I was asked about my job at VMware, um, my what did I do and all that, what was my responsibility and all. So so this was one thing, and then finally, I mean, after asking about all of this and getting a clear understanding, so he told me to actually design a CI system, right? So basically, this was similar to he was asking me to build a CI system, kind of a modern one like GitLab CI or GitHub Actions, and build it end to end. And this is like similar to building Jenkins, right? So this is what he told me. Just a moment. So yeah, like he told me to build it end to end, and this is similar to building Jenkins or GitLab CI/CD and all, and not just using existing CI systems. But he said you can use some systems, don't have to build everything from scratch. And he said cost optimized architecture and all. Actually, no, this was not part of that. One moment. Yes. So, so he said this, and he wanted the ability to run pipelines, right? All modern features, and he told me he doesn't want it to be like Jenkins. I was asking him what about Jenkins that he didn't like or was not modern. Anyways, then I assumed that it's just about the UI, and I told him how we can use a central system for assigning jobs to workers, basically nodes that can run the jobs or CI system, right? How will developers mention what to run and all that? How will developers interact with CI system? So I was basically telling him how we can use files or configure it directly in the CI system, right? So if it is a files, then like through CI system through UI, say, right? Admin UI or something, right? And files, I was talking to him about how it can be of different structures like YAML, JSON. JSON is just a subset, so YAML is a superset of JSON. And then things like even TOML or use proper fully functional programming languages, fully functional or half functional programming languages and their features. For example, Groovy. This is how build systems are written in for a lot of Java projects using Groovy for Gradle. And you can use Kotlin nowadays, Kotlin and Kotlin scripts and all, etc. So he said, okay, let's go with YAML. Don't tell this can be chosen, that can be chosen. So we went ahead with YAML. So we then defined where does it run, how does it run. So he was asking me about how do you do parallel runs versus sequence runs, right? And I was telling how some jobs can be dependent on other jobs, dependency on jobs, among jobs. How will you run it? How will you run jobs with dependencies and all that? So I said first, draw a graph and then finish off the ones that don't have any dependency, and then start running the ones with dependencies where the dependencies are actually satisfied or run. And then in the specification I also mentioned, like similar to what is parallel run, like what are the parallel runs, what are the sequence or step runs, step by step uh, runs, and then what happens during failures, right, etc. And then manual trigger. He asked for a full architecture. Um, so manual trigger versus automatic trigger. So I said manually someone will trigger from the CLI, like UI, user interface or API. Um, Clients use UI or API. So for automatic trigger, I basically said something like on push off code. in which case we need to use something like a version control system, right? Where Git comes and then GitHub comes, Git server, right? And then webhooks for notifications on events, like on pull request or on push or on comment, etc. Okay. So these are some of the things that we spoke about, and then I told him how we can use, so how a central system can actually do the orchestrating, which includes orchestrating, which includes scheduling and all, and how in the specification of process to run, we have to say stuff like RAM, resources required, um, RAM, CPU, and all. And he said, let's just use something else. Can we do instead of doing it all ourselves? I said, basically use Kubernetes or use Nomad. With Kubernetes, we can use containers. Um, with Nomad, we can use plain VMs also. So he said, let's just use containers. And he was asking me, how will you run it inside the container? And then I told him that how the source code is mounted um, into the container, and what is the command to run in the container. So I told him uh, image specification CMD or runtime provide CMD, right, command. So in image specification in Docker file, for example, when you write the Docker file, which is for the image, you specify the runtime command apart from the build time, how to build the image. So apart from build time instructions, so image build instructions or build time instructions for the image build. So what else? He was asking me if I'll run it as it is given an image. I think you shouldn't run it as it is because sometimes images might be run the image as it is. Maybe not, as image might be a security risk. So, but I didn't tell this. I kind of realized he was probably hinting at that or something like that. Not sure, but yeah, this is something to think about. It has to be run in a sandbox environment and all. I spoke about sandbox environment in general. So, and I was talking about how storage of artifacts, let's say if you have some binary artifacts or whatever, remote storage versus storing in the runtime or execution environment. And so all of this stuff. I didn't talk to him about variables configuration or variables, secure variables, etc. So, for example, you will probably need some tokens and whatnot, which you cannot put it in your code or which you cannot put it in your um, anywhere in any configuration. So, you'll have to specifically mention it separately. So, these are secure variables usually, and so that is that. I also mentioned to him about Tecton framework, which is on top of Kubernetes, and it's a CI/CD framework to build CI/CD systems. I said we can either use pods and jobs from Kubernetes, or we can just build custom resources and custom resource definitions and controllers. So basically, have our own custom resources on top of a custom resource definition, some type, right? And then use controllers and all. So and then wait for jobs to finish, complete, and whatnot. So that is that. So these are some of the things that I was talking about, and then I told him how in the architecture there'll be a client, of course, there'll be a what do you say? There'll also be what do you say, one API where it's a monolith or a microservices thing. I said initially let's keep it as monolith. So authentication, authorization is one thing that I spoke about, and then Kubernetes is one part, and then I spoke about forgot basically system to get notifications from VCS webhooks, and then so runners and everything is all based on Kubernetes, right? So what to run, uh, find out what to run, and in what order, right? Basically, the executor. Um, so these are some of the things that I spoke about. I can't recall what else I spoke about, but yeah, these are some things. And then last round, I was being asked about how, actually, in somewhere in between, I think it was with Srijit. I was asking about. He was asking me about web servers. How do you host the UI hosting, Nginx, um, scaling of UI, etc. So he was asking me about this. So I was telling him how you'll have to scale based on some. So even for CI/CD, I was asked how do you scale. So I told him we can scale based on the requests that is coming. And how do you scale the cluster itself? So I told cluster autoscaler. And he was asking me, is there any project that you've seen? So I said cluster autoscaler, which can where Kubernetes can talk to the cloud and autoscale, and create worker nodes that can automatically join the Kubernetes cluster, right? So this is one thing. So I was talking about this. So this is one way to like scale. I think I spoke about scale up and scale down too. So in Srij's discussion, I think it came up that how do you have different environments and all. Like I was telling him how we have development environment, QA, staging, production. Then we decided that we'll keep development and staging as one, and have um, production one, QA one. So where we can deploy and whatnot. And I told them how we can scale down completely. The QAs can do it only whenever it's needed. QA performance team and whatnot, performance checking team. So he was asking me how that worked out and whatnot, all that, and then so yeah. So finally, Palla was asking me how I worked in different companies. Did I work with a deadline? Um, he realized that in two of my companies, I didn't work with deadlines. I was working very R&D type of work, right? And even Srijit was asking me what kind of work I did in Ola. So I was telling him how I didn't do too much of Terraform. I was working more on Vault, HashiCorp Vault. Um, so yeah, and stuff and CACD, right? So Pallav was also asking me about kind of work that I did. So like was it the deadlines, process, sprints, timelines, strict versus loose timelines and deadlines, right? And also individual contributor um, versus leading a team and mentoring members, right? So because this current role is supposed to be a team lead, where I mentor say one or two people, so and also be an individual contributor, uh, and also contributing as an individual contributor. So he was asking me how do you planning, etc. Experience. So I told how I have actually planned in ThoughtWorks, um, and also I mean ThoughtWorks mainly. In VMware, Togai, in VMware also we had a little bit of planning. In Togai and Ola, there was not so much planning. So yeah. So I was talking about agile sprints, showcase, demo, right? Iterations, sprint planning, story estimation, and whatnot. So he was telling how stories can be like tasks, and the story or tasks can be estimated by seniors. looks like in Capillary Technologies, it is actually done by seniors, but they also mentioned that team leads also sometimes join in and usually are expected to provide some inputs and plan along with the engineering managers and other seniors, right? So basically, there are engineering managers in this company, and then there are senior engineering managers, and then architects and senior architects, and then there are developers, right? Like SDEs, one, two, three, etc. So I am going to be in SD3, being a lead. It's called SD3 and it's a lead. Basically, I have to lead some folks, probably one or two people, I think. So yeah, and he was asking me, how do you plan? Talk about some hard problems that I worked on. I think someone, I don't remember if was it Srijit or Pallav, who asked talk about something you designed and architected, right? So this is something that came up, and I was telling them what I did. They are asking, so Palla was asking me, have you done migrations? So upgrades, right? Plan and upgrade for Redis version upgrade. Walk me through the whole process of what you will do, right? So I said first we'll get stats for all Redis of what versions are running. These are running currently. Diff version diffs, cost of upgrade versus return of investment from upgrade, right? So usually you say return from the upgrade. So return of investment from the upgrade or due to the upgrade or of the upgrade, kind of. But yeah, from, you get it from it. It's not like, or you say it's off. It's a return of investment of the upgrade, and it's related to the upgrade because the upgrade happens. So, and I spoke about communication only later, but he was telling me how he was expecting me to talk about communications from the start, with dev teams, etc., developers and teams. And basically, I told him how you can find version difference in terms of features, performance, um, security, bugs, etc. Um, changes in stuff, breaking changes, etc. API changes, right? Check all of this. Check what's new, what's old and removed, what's missing, basically, what's renamed, maybe, right? Multiple things like that. So I spoke about this, and you have to see how to figure it out and all. And in case of bad scenarios, we have to have a rollback strategy. So basically, disaster recovery stuff, right? Um, I think I was asked about disaster recovery even in Sage's conversation about how to ensure it's like disaster recovery is taken care of. So this was something that came up in Sage's discussion. So that was that. And then finally we spoke and we said, okay, great. So I think these are the only questions I was asked. I'm not sure what else I got asked. I forgot. But these are some of the questions. Yeah, at least most of the questions, I believe. If there's something that I missed here, I'll probably record it in another video. And so yeah, that's all I had for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.